Hello everyone! Pineaaronapple here with Doctor Who Flux, or Series 13, Episode 2, War of the Sontarans. Last time we were introduced to our new companion, Dan, carvinist of the good boy, and experienced malfunctions in the TARDIS, the end of the universe, and a load of other plot threads that mean nothing until we eventually find out more down the road. We were also introduced to our villains for the series, Swarm and Azure, and an early intro into today's villains, the redesigned Sontarans. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Starting the episode, 13 wakes up in a monochromatic nightmare, where she finds the House of 1,000 Fan Theories. My money's on Lungbarrow or TARDIS. She reaches towards it and is woken out, finding herself on the ground in a very good-looking and cinematic battleground. Yaz and Dan find her, and Yaz reckons they were thrown out of the TARDIS. Judging by how it materialised a bed and trampoline last episode, I like to think it created a comically large boxing glove and booted them out after the Flux attacked. Why does this always happen? Finding some hints and a Jamaican lady, they determine this to be the Crimean War. Speaking of that Jamaican lady, this is Mary Seacole, played by Sarah Powell. I loved Seacole in this episode, but compared with other great historical figures we've had in 13's era, I would say she falls a little bit short of the likes of Nikola Tesla. Mrs. Seacole meets our heroes, but it seems the enemy are advancing. Those damned Russians. Wait, no, not Russians. Oh yes, it seems time has gone a little bit wobbly, as instead of Russians advancing, we get the most badass Sontarans of the New Who era, and I have to say, a Sontaran riding horseback is everything I wanted from this new series and more. I love this design of the Sontarans. It mixes great elements of the Davies Sontarans and the impeccable design harkening back to the classic Sontarans of the 3rd and 4th Doctor's eras. The main Sontaran here, played by Jonathan Watson. Back with Vinder, he wakes up to a flying upside down pyramid drone priest, wow that was a mouthful, that ignores his pleas to contact his home and badgers him about whether he can repair something or not. The drone beckoning him to follow, Vinder is introduced to the Mori, whose design I adore. The gang, thank God the only good thing about Graham leaving was the disuse of the word fam, follows Seacole to her British hotel, where she takes care of the wounded. Once Dan picks up on the concept of time travel and the addition of aliens to history, he and Yaz start to fade with a nice blue energy effect. This apparently had something to do with the collision of the heart of the TARDIS and the Flux last episode, but I have two questions about it. First of all, what? And second of all, why is it only kicking in now? 13 hurries back to the TARDIS, and in a well-done oh shit moment, the doors of the TARDIS have disappeared. This reminds me a lot of when the inner dimensions were stolen in Father's Day, but here, instead of a sudden shock, I feel that the build-up of tension here makes the scene fit in well here and feel more original. 13 is almost found by the Sontarans, so she takes a tactical retreat back to the British hotel. Dan appears back at his time, finding his house still gone from last episode. He tries to talk to his neighbours, but they ignore him. Diane also won't pick up his calls. It seems he is out under curfew, as it seems the Sontaran have at least taken over the local area, taking advantage of the Flux. This leads to a chase, and I have to say the one thing that really pisses me off in this episode is the amount of times it's written Sontarans shoot at main characters and miss every single goddamn shot. This is turning them from the ultimate warriors into stormtroopers. Dan's pursuers are attacked from behind by Dan's parents. I like them while they're here, but it's quite unnatural to me how they appear now and only serve as an expositional point for Dan, not even to my memory being mentioned last episode. I may be wrong, but they still seem to pop out of nowhere and then just leave without much to do. Yaz apparates in the same place as Vinder and finds a very confused Joseph Williamson wandering around, who as soon as he appears decides to leave after some rambling about how the universe is falling apart. and that's all we see of him. What a great addition. A drone finds Yaz, and Yaz looks to her hand to read WTDD. What would the Doctor do? I find this kind of stupid. On one hand, it's a decent character moment for Yaz, but much like the addition of Dan's parents, it suddenly appears without notice. At least it does pay off character-wise later, but for now it's just a point pulled out of thin air. 13 comes back to Seacole and Logan, who is the leader of the British forces. 13 scoffs at the stupidity of Logan, and I have to say I love the style her hair is in for this episode. Not really important, but, you know, I do. 13 learns that since time is wibbly, Russia is non-existent, replaced by the state of Sontar. This is not looking good for history. Logan makes his only good point of the episode, and we learn of a captive Sontaran who is definitely Dan Starkey. We get a good setup and exposition between Seacole, 13 and the Sontaran, including facts needed like their sleep cycle. 13 lets him go with a message about the Doctor, totally not her, to give to his commander. Logan is about to bust a cap into him when 13 says the ultimate controlling words of "Do not shoot," and apparently that works. The only way I can rationalise Logan's decision here is that even if he's a great drunk twat, he at least has the honour not to shoot an unarmed, retreating POW in the back. 13 and Seacole follow our Sontaran buddy as he returns to base, having a nice chat, and after passing through an okay-looking force field effect, end up with the breathtaking sight of the Sontaran forces. 13 leaves Seacole to record the goings-on as our Sontaran mate is humiliated by their current time period leader Skak. He is informed of the parley deal and gives his subordinate the mercy of a quick death. This scene is great at giving us more insight to the Sontarans and is great context to how they live as a species. I also love the addition to SONTAR-HA that is SONTAR-HA, seeming to be a more somber rendition. Dan and his parents hide from the Sontarans and we find out they've been here for 2 days, how long Dan has been missing. They tell Dan where the ships are, and we are told of their probic weakness in a comedic scene. His parents drive him to the docks and Dan is given a walk to defend himself. Dan does his lovely little run while his parents are busy disappearing from the episode, and we're thrust back to Vinder. Vinder readies his gun but is greeted by Yaz. They introduce themselves and the drone repeats its demands, and they discuss the Flux. Out of these 6 beings, the 2 that are fluctuating are what need repairing. And they also learn that the beings only appear if someone steps onto the plateau. The drone calls the place the Temple of Atropos, but Vinder states that that's impossible. He is then interrupted by the exposition drone. The drone states that the Mori have time pass through them, time also being the name of the planet. The Mori were assigned by someone to keep time stable. Time is seen here as more of an evil, destructive force, which is quite an interesting concept, especially paired with the fact that in the Doctor Who universe, time is herself a being, sister to death. Although, whether or not we're discussing the power or the personification in this episode is unsure, but we're likely just being given context for the Flux, as characters such as the personification of death and time are from the expanded universe novels that I highly doubt we're going to see here, but I will hold out hope. Dan continues to sneak around with his wok, watching 3 people get executed. A little dour, but a good setup of the stakes and a good combatant to all the scenes where the Sontarans shoot and hit nothing. 13 sends her signal out to rendezvous with the commander, and they have a great scene together, even with a callback to the Time Warrior. 13 is then interrupted by Logan, who has a soldier cart her off at gunpoint, leading to the almost complete destruction of the British forces. This battle is fantastically shot, and I had no problems with the way it looked here, although it does make the British look a little incompetent. 13 escapes from her captor, and we return to Dan doing a vlog. He films his adventure for the Doctor and sneaks aboard a ship with a wonderful sweeping shot. Back on time, Azure and Swarm appear with a new friend in tow. Passenger. The drone gets scared, and in return, Azure disintegrates it in an imposing scene. Another hint comes when Swarm states Atropos is where it all began. So maybe they met the Doctor here or something. In the war, 13 meets back with Seacole and decides to go into a ship while the Sontarans double tap their fallen enemies. As Logan shits himself. 13 knocks out a Sontaran with her slingshot, and Dan simultaneously gets to the control deck of the ship he is in. He speaks with 13 through a video call and gives the information to 13. And Dan is as funny as ever. 13 learns that in the current day they are building time ships to attack every era of Earth. They formulate a plan, but a Sontaran intercepts their transmission. Dan is captured but fools a Sontaran just to tell terrible jokes and be captured again, not even around the corner. Swarm and his posse intimidate Yaz, paying off what little her character has done this episode, and in a terrifying stance, Swarm grabs Yaz by the face, leading to Vinda stepping in, allowing Swarm and Azure to flaunt as they stylishly avoid all of his gunshots. Swarm uses these two to show the Mori. Since after the last time Swarm and Azure were here, they had defences set up against them. Swarm monologues against the Mori and straight up kills one, while Dan is to be executed, leaving it up to our good boy Carvanista to wreck the Sontarans in another scene of them somehow being unable to aim correctly in close proximity. I'm glad to say Carvanista and Dan still have great chemistry this episode. Now, scared out of his wits, Logan crawls back to beg for 13's help, who comes up with a great battle strategy in a good scene. Their plan is to remove the chemicals keeping the Sontaran suits working, meaning their opportune time to strike is while everyone is juicing up. Although for the great military force the Sontarans are, I highly doubt that they would not leave a guard or two of some sort while they restock, especially knowing the Doctor's around. The Doctor and her crew release all the gas, leaving Sontarans with no food, while Dan and Carvanista buddy cop through the ship. Carvanista's plan is to take off and crash the ship into the dockyard, while the commander screams at 13, reacting to her sabotage, making a strategic withdrawal. Back on the ship, Carvanista seeks the escape pod, and once again the Sontarans fail to hit a slow-moving target in a confined space. Dan and Carvanista slide down and out of the ship in a laughably bad effect as the ship rams into the yard. Honestly, the ramming effect looks fantastic, so I don't know why Dan and Carvanista flying out looks so hilariously bad in comparison. This combination of temporal energy apparently erasing the Sontarans and ships out of existence. And as 13 makes her escape, Logan Harriet Joneses them with kegs of dynamite, and 13 gets a great moment of telling off Logan. The TARDIS calls 13 back and she arrives to collect Dan. Carvanista stays to protect Earth, and 13 and Dan search for Yaz. It seems the TARDIS is rather ill though, with bits and pieces everywhere and a great mangled design. 13 and Dan are called by Azure once on time, and are confronted by the dastardly trio. This confrontation and the revelation of the now captured Yaz and Vinda are fantastic, and honestly my favourite cliffhanger of Jodie's era. Feeling much like a classic cliffhanger. Azure counts and Swarm starts to send the cogs running and having time run through Yaz and Vinda, much like the Mori, with the genuinely terrified look on 13's face as a snap leads us into the credits. Overall, this episode was pretty good, although I do have my gripes with it. A lot of the script and plot points come out of nowhere and are suddenly dropped. The Sontarans can only hit when their enemy is directly in front of them. Like some shots on the battlefield, their own people, and them really only getting a 100% kill ratio when they're executing prisoners. And some things are left unexplained. Now that's not a problem in itself, But when they half-assed try to explain things like Carvinista's plan, sometimes it feels a little unspecific. But minor gripes there. Nothing I can't logic away, just odd. The Sontarans were great, even if their defeat was a little half-hearted, but I did like their destruction, leading to good moments from 13 and Dan. Yaz got good characterization, trying too hard to be like the Doctor, and that getting her in danger. Rewatching the Halloween Apocalypse, you can see some of that shining through, but the hand note was just a little too far out of left field for me to be comfortable with it. This episode was about on par to last episode, where that episode had strong strands being created. This delivered well on a few of them, doing well to continue the story, but unlike the plot and device structure from last episode here, it did leave me with a lower feeling. I give Doctor Who Series 13, or Flux Chapter 2, War of the Sontarans, a 7 out of 10. Thank you everybody so much for watching this review of the latest episode of Doctor Who. Please like the video if you liked it, consider commenting down below if you wish, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and if you do, remember to ring that notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.